Hey everybody, welcome to the season 2 debut of the 3R podcast, aka the 3R pod. I'm Dave, and as per usual, I'm joined by my captivating and charismatic cinephile co-host Austin St. Pierre. Austin, what is up?
We are back. Not that we went anywhere. In the words of Nick Cage,
True.
happy
So
to be
true.
back. Been looking forward to this for several weeks now.
Same.
We had
So
a
we got
unique combination of weather, sickness, schedule changes, all to finally bring us here today.
took us a month. And I hate that it took us a month. It took us closer to 6 weeks, but still not keeping score that tightly, mainly because if I did, I'd be losing. But yeah, so the new season is almost upon us. We've got the spring season coming up, right? We've got the Academy Awards coming up next
I
week.
do.
Lots and lots in there, 2 weeks from now, I guess. Lots and lots to talk about. So let's just get caught up first. What's your current watch?
Currently, main watches. I've been watching several of the animes that were premiering back in January. But on top of that, I've been trying to catch up on, well, not necessarily catching up on, but finishing Ted Lasso. I'm about a third of the way through season 3. I know you've been haggling me on it, but I'm getting there. So
Woohoo!
between that and catching up on Severance, those have been my main ones I've been trying to get caught up on. So I got caught up on season 1 of Severance. So now Barbie and I started watching season 2 just the other night. So we watched the first
Nice.
couple episodes of that, and that's fantastic. That's another just really, really, really good show. I think Apple's really showing its chops with their TV shows lately between, Severance, Ted Lasso, what you say about Shrinking and other stuff. Like
Hmm.
they're just like almost everything they're putting out is just top tier.
I agree. On my list, to kind of stick into that whole common theme of what we're watching and it be at Apple TV, my wife and I started Lioness
But yeah, I want to
this
watch that.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Zoe Saldana, and she is stellar in this. She is really good. The premise is that she's a CIA operative, and she puts these plants in to help find terrorists. And it starts with kind of this really kind of grimming and like uh I don't want to say like negative, but like really impactful trial that she goes through to start the show. And it's one of those, you know me, man, I like a fast starter, right? Like
Right.
give me some action off the top, get me invested, get me involved. I just and this does that to the letter. I mean, it's action from the beginning. It does a really good job developing the characters at the beginning of the show, and you know what you're in for the minute it starts. And it's been great. My wife even, who doesn't typically like my picks,
Yeah.
she was like, "Yeah, this is good. I can do this
That's
for
good.
sure."
That's good.
So yeah, so it's been great, and we've also, well, I have also, man, I've been running the gauntlet. I've seen all kind of stuff since the last time we talked. I watched Band of Brothers, which I
Mm-hmm.
had never seen, and shame on me for that. My grandpa was a
Wow. I
World
didn't
War
know that
II
was your
veteran.
first time. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was my first watch, and I was so enthralled by it that I didn't watch anything in between. I literally
Mm-hmm.
watched every episode of that like in a row.
Back to back. Yeah.
Oh, it was beautiful, and it's so cinematic and so well written, and it follows the same Easy Company through the whole
Mm-hmm.
phase of the war. It made me kind of wish that maybe they had done, another couple of companies that they, kind of followed through and done another series of, because
Yeah.
it's just so educational and it's so intense, and it
Yeah.
really gives you an appreciation for what went on,
Yeah.
when war was war. It's
Mm-hmm.
different now,
Yeah.
right? Like you see all
Yeah.
these, spy gadgets and all that stuff. But yeah, man, so uh, been crazy busy
Yeah.
with following up on my queue. My queue is shrinking, no pun intended. Um, yeah, so that's what I'm excited about, man. I'm excited to get through the rest of Line S. Shout out Taylor Sheridan again, because that dude's awesome. I guess he kind of stripped Kevin Costner a little bit as far as the contract for
Yeah. Some behind the
Yellowstone.
scenes drama.
Yeah, a little bit there, but as far as production quality, he never fails to amaze. Mayor of Kingstown, 1883 is another one I followed up on and
Mm-hmm.
watched all
Yep.
of,
Yep.
and I have yet to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Shout out to him
Yep.
for the work he's doing.
1923 season 2 is right around the corner.
It is. That's another Taylor Sheridan piece.
Mm-hmm.
Follows that same family, the Duttons through
through the
history.
yep through the
That's next on my queue
yeah
after Lioness. We're going to get through it first, but
yep. Cool. Yeah, I've also been watching the new Reacher season. I kicked off season 3. They put the
yeah, we
first
did
3
too.
episodes of that one. That one's awesome. I'm super excited to
Oh
keep
my
going with
gosh,
that one. And then Invincible season 3 started as well, so I've been watching that.
nerd, nerd. So, what was your take on Reacher's start, on the kind of back and forth, sort of Pulp Fiction-y? We're a couple minutes into the story and then we
Non-linear.
bounce
Yeah.
back. Yeah,
Yeah,
how did you feel about that?
I thought that was awesome. I loved it cuz I'm like all these things are happening, and I'll try to not really spoil anything for people who haven't seen it yet, but like that whole first action sequence, I'm like, this is Reacher, but at the same time he's making mistakes he doesn't usually make. And I'm like, what's going on? And then they do the title drop, the line right before I'm in, and I'm like, me too. Like, let's
Got it.
go. I
Yep,
can't wait to
same.
see what's
You hit
next.
me. You hit me right in the feels on that one
Yeah,
too. Like
yeah,
you got me all amped
yeah.
up. You got me all
Because you're like,
excited.
what's
You got
going on? He gets in this house and he's working with this
yeah.
supposed crime family or something. He sits down on the bed, pulls out a phone. I'm in. I'm like, yes, let's go.
All right, so yeah, so we've done all the catching up. We've talked about some of the things we've seen, and we're really kind of moving along with the progression here as far as the things we wanted to catch up on. But we do still intend to do the Star Wars episode, right?
We do. Yep.
So we've got a couple of our next couple of shows are mapped out. So want to make sure that you jump back for those. We've got a Star Wars special. We're going to do light side, dark side on the 9 cinematic films, and also we'll do another top anticipated shows and movies for spring 2025. That's actually probably our next one because
Probably,
we'll be
yeah.
getting close to May, right? So we'll do the May the 4th. Kind of Star Wars thing. Maybe
Yeah.
even a bonus episode for that. I don't know. We'll see what we've got schedule wise, but
Yeah.
I don't want to write any checks at the moment because everything's been pure chaos to this
I
point.
know.
So
It's been a crazy start of the year.
yes, it has, and it's already we're almost 2 months in, man.
I know.
It's flying by, but you know what that means is the movie season is just about upon
Yeah.
us. We're gonna
Summer
get to the close.
blockbusters.
Yeah, so summer blockbuster stuff is something I'm looking forward to, and definitely something we'll talk about in the next episode. So Austin, you know what time of year it is? It's a year or a time of year that talks about the movies that I tend to care about the least.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Academy Award season, so
Depending on the year, me
I
too.
I am I don't know, maybe a casual cinephile if that's possible. I just like what I like, and typically the movies that hit the Oscars are not the movies that I care to see or that I chase. But having said that, we do have some interesting takes on what could be the best films in the Oscars this year. So let's take a look at those and talk about those real quick. I'm going to kick this off with a fun fact that I did not know. And again, mostly because I'm just not a huge Oscars fan. But out of all the Oscar sweeps in history, only 3 movies have ever won the big 5 categories in the same year. I thought this was crazy as a
Okay.
stat. Erin Johnson from Screen Rant wrote this article, and she did a nice job kind of surmising or summarizing the whole situation about how hard it is to have the big 5 all land in your lap in the same year with the same film.
Yeah.
So it happened one night. Was I think 1934, and then One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was in the 50s, and then The Silence of the Lambs, of course, were the last films to achieve that very
Wow.
impressive feat.
Okay. Yeah.
And most recently, La La Land could have won the Big 5.
Mm-hmm.
They were nominated for all 5. Q for 2025, my first celebrity crush, Emma Stone. She's been one I've followed for a long time, and I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
fan. So
Yeah.
that was definitely outside of her realm, I thought at the beginning from the jump. But she did a nice job in that film. So that's kind of cool. That was the uh, most recent Big 5 competitor, I guess.
Yeah.
So what's your take when you look at this and what's upcoming? Do you have a favorite for Best Picture?
I mean, I'm biased, but I'm a big supporter of Dune Part 2 because I'm a big fan of Denis
Nerd.
Villeneuve.
Here we go again.
So I definitely would be happy to see that one win Best Picture, especially because Part 1 did not get it, and Part 2 is
Yeah,
even better in some ways. In some ways,
sure.
Part 1's better, but in other ways, Part 2 is better. But I mean, looking at the list, there's several I haven't seen on here. I would say on an average Oscar year, I've usually seen about half of the movies or so that
Mm,
are popular. This year's even less so. Like, um, just looking at the Best Picture nominations, I haven't seen Amelia Perez, Conclave. I do want to see Conclave because I've heard it's pretty good. I hadn't
Hmm.
even heard of Nickel Boys or I'm Still Here. I've heard good things about The Substance. Kind of really cool to see a horror movie get nominated in the Best Picture category. And then, of course, we have Dune Part 2, the Wicked movie. Happy to see that nominated for Best Picture because that was really good. And Nora, I've heard really good things on, but I've also heard it's kind of a weird movie, too. And then I've heard good about The Brutalist as well.
Yeah, so the Brutalist was one with Brody that I thought was he won in was it '03 for The Pianist or
Yep. Hmm.
'04, I can't remember.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And this would be his second film that's been really kind of popularized and
Yeah.
um, across the board as far as the awards go. And
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of a lot of the stuff that he's done anyway. So like I'm kind of pulling for the Brutalist to be honest. And if I'm being completely honest, I've only seen three of these
Hmm.
movies.
Like I said, I've only seen Dune Part 2 and Wicked off of this list. Those are the only two I've seen. The
Yeah,
rest of them, there's a few I'm interested in, but others never even heard of and probably won't go and watch.
yeah. And I thought Conclave looked really cool. I just didn't get
Hmm.
around to watching it yet.
Yeah.
There's some chatter for Honora, but I'll be honest, like it's really, and I can't completely confirm again because I haven't seen it all the way through, but it's kind of a sensationalized Cinderella story,
Hmm.
maybe a little mix
That's what it seems
of
like.
a
Yeah.
yeah, like a
Like a
Shakespearean kind of
darker
twist
take
type
on it kind
thing.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of not really feuding families, but they're going through that whole disapproval of the relationship thing and all that.
Yeah.
And it just kind of seemed, I don't really know how to describe it. It just kind of seemed like it was subpar for the category based on
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
things.
I
If
mean,
you look
everyone
back at
has
like Oppenheimer last year.
right, yeah. Everyone has different opinions when it comes to Best Picture nominations and stuff. And I mean, they've expanded the category to be 10 films as opposed to the original five, which is cool. But then,
Hmm.
that'll kind of lead into another conversation of how do you nominate 10 movies for Best Picture, but only five directors for Best Director, that kind of thing, too. So,
I wonder why are we discussing this? What brings this on?
because I have beef with the Oscars this year.
You have beef with the Oscars this
I
year.
do.
Hot
Well, I have
take,
beef with
heard
the
it here
Oscars
first.
most year, but especially this year. Because as
Hot
I've
take.
indicated several times in our conversation, and it's probably this podcast as well, Dune Part 2 is a fantastic, fantastic movie. And most of the reason that that movie is so fantastic is because of lead man at the director's chair, Denis Villeneuve. And how dare they not give him Best Director as a nomination at the very least
Did
nominate
he
him. Maybe he
say,
won't win,
how
but
dare they?
how dare they?
My goodness. That's
Yes.
almost combative from Austin
Yeah.
St. Pierre. That's a take, man.
I
That's
am non-confrontational except for this instance right here.
I will not fight you over anything except Dune 2. Yeah, so that kind of segues into this best directors category.
Hmm.
Sean Baker for Anora, Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez, and Coralie Farragut for The Substance. The Brutalist is the only thing that strikes my fancy in this list, and again, that's something I'll be rooting for it because of that.
Yep. And you got the complete unknown on here for Bob Dylan. I'm not someone who listens to Bob Dylan all that often. I probably couldn't even name several songs of his, but I mean, I'm a fan of James Mangold, the director on that one, so I do want to check it out. And I'm a Timothy Chalamet fan, so I do want to see it for those reasons. For me, it's not necessarily because it's about Bob Dylan; it's more the creatives behind it that has me interested in the movie.
Sure, sure. And I'll tell you what, I've been pleasantly surprised at how much I like Timothy Chalamet and the things he's done recently.
He's very, very
Of
talented.
course, Wonka last year, or it was last year, the year before,
Hmm. Last
and
year.
a complete unknown. You got this Dylan tribute kind of thing, and I'm not a Dylan fan either. It's too peaceful music for me. Nothing about Dylan inspires me or is relatable in my life. So
Hmm.
um, still nice to see Chalamet get the nod also at Best Actor, as well as Adrian Brody for The Brutalist and Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. I think those are all three very deserving actors, and I have seen pieces of Conclave, and I will definitely add it to my queue for down the road. But it's a shame on
Yeah,
me for not being prepared
yeah. And I'm
more
and
to
I'm
argue in
glad.
his favor.
Yeah, I'm glad Chalamet got the love for Complete Unknown, but I also think his performance as Paul Atreides was excellent and should have gotten some recognition as well. And then also in the best actor category, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. I have not seen Sing Sing yet, but I've heard it's really, really good. And I was definitely interested just based off the trailer for it. And I'm a fan of Coleman Domingo's previous work. So it's definitely one that's of the Oscar nominated films on here in this kind of big five categories. It's definitely one of the ones I definitely want to check out. I'm just kind of waiting for it to hit a streaming service and then I'll give it a watch.
Yeah,
But
this
that
is
one's kind of, it's a
it's a
cool
pretty
kind of
clever
premise.
premise,
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah, like a group of prisoners, doing like a musical kind of thing together. I thought that was kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Well, and Sing Sing is also it is the facility they're incarcerated in, right? So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a cool little play on words
Yeah.
for the title, which
Yeah.
is kind of neat. Listen at me sounding so amateur just talking about title names and stuff because I don't know anything about the film, but yeah, it did look very cool. And there's you go into Best Actress next, and the one that jumps off the page to me is Cynthia Erivo for Wicked.
Yep.
You got Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Mikey Madison for Honora, Demi Moore for The Substance, and Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. And rooting really hard for Cynthia Erivo just because I thought she was a breath of fresh air in
Mm.
Wicked. I thought she
Yeah.
was, her, and that film deserves so much accolade just because of costuming and performance, visual appeasement. It's just, it was really cool to see a musical that I actually kind of,
Yeah.
honestly, sort
And
of, I loved it.
yeah, and we're both biased and ignorant in that we haven't seen any of the other films
Sure,
that the
sure.
actresses are nominated for, but at the same time, I mean, I do really love her performance in that movie. She was definitely my favorite performance in that film. So that
Yeah, I
I
thought
think
she
that
was
speaks to
awesome.
it just as that film itself.
Yeah, and I'll be rooting for her to win just because of that. I
Hmm.
really was. And we've talked about this before. Last season, we talked about how complementary she and Ariana Grande were to each other. Both powerful voices in a different way. One of them is a kind of a taller, intimidating sort of figure, while the other is kind of a dainty,
More
angelic type.
petite. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they really kind of hit the nail on the head as far as how they cast that, I think,
Hmm.
which is interesting in itself. So then finally we've got the best screenplay, right? We've got the
Yeah.
adapted screenplay and original screenplay. So original screenplay, Honora, this thing being in an original screenplay category, it's not original.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
how
Well,
else
like
to
you said,
say
it's
it.
basically a Cinderella type story
Yeah, it's the same story retold once every
through a
2 or 3
different lens
years.
perspective. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and I'm excited for Brady Corbett and Mona Fastvold for The Brutalist because I really did find that movie. It's man, it's so real.
Hmm.
So I hope that they get a good look for this. And then A Real Pain by Jesse Eisenberg, September 5th, and The Substance for Best Original Screenplay. September 5th, I don't know anything at all about.
I've heard it's really good. That's another one of the ones that I is definitely on the top of my list to check out. It's I forget what year it is, but it's about these terrorists who held people hostage, and it's about like the news broadcasters who were doing the stories on and broadcasting it, and it's kind of like the whole what's right, what's wrong in this type of situation as far as what you're broadcasting and stuff like that. Because it was the first time something like this happened in history. So I've heard it's very accurate to what happened. I've heard it's very realistic and authentic as far as like the way that it's filmed and shot and stuff like that. So I've heard a lot of really good things about it. Just one that I haven't had a chance to get around to seeing yet.
Yeah, and you've got Peter Sarsgaard,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
who is super talented on the cast here. So that's another one that kind of looks, and it was the 1972 Munich Olympics.
That's what. Yep. Mm-hmm. I knew it was in the 70s.
Yeah, so interesting premise. Definitely another one to add to the queue. So here we go again, lengthening my
Yep.
queue for better or worse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
So I mean, yeah, as far as the ones that I haven't seen, that would be one. And then we talk about Complete Unknown, Sing Sing. So there's definitely stuff on here that I do want to check out. It's just, we only have so much time.
yes, sir. And then the adapted screenplay, of course, is Emilia Perez, A Complete Unknown, Nickel Boys, Conclave, and Sing Sing. So Conclave again jumps off the page at me just because of the popularity and the ratings that it got
Hmm.
as it come out. Nickel Boys is something I want to put on the queue as well. So, I will at some point have seen most of these movies, but just not right now. And in fairness, for most of the year, last year. We weren't doing this podcast, so I didn't have a
Right.
lot of reason
Yeah.
to stick that out. So yeah, that's it for the Big Five, and it's certainly an interesting premise every year, right? This the Oscars, and
Hmm.
it's glam, and it's about stars being recognized for their hard work, and not only stars, but cast and
A
crew
lot of the
get a lot of
crew and
love
stuff.
here.
Yeah.
So that's something that I find really interesting from that perspective anyway. Maybe
Hmm.
not necessarily something I care about all year, but it's
Right.
also something I think is kind of cool, and it does inspire me to go look for a couple of new
Right, which is kind of how I
films
look
for the
at it
queue
too.
as
Is
well.
yeah, sometimes you might check out a movie you may not have checked out if it weren't in this type of awards race or show kind of thing. So I think that's a good element of something like an awards show like the Oscars,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't think, from what I've gathered, not any real snubs or surprises
aside from Denis.
from what I gather, except for that one thing we talked about briefly. What was that again? That was
Oh, Denis just not even being recognized as the best director of last
Dune.
year.
That's right, Dune. Yeah, Dune. I forgot.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. That's my
it
one
slipped right.
tangent, and then I'm always annoyed at the scheduling when it comes to the Oscars of why they have to be a third of the way into the year. That doesn't make any sense. And then I always think it's weird that like the movies that are eligible for the Oscars are like as long as you release by the end of January of the following year, like you're in for category wise. Like The Brutalist didn't go wide release until January. So it's like, what about your average Joe audience member who doesn't go into a film festival or something like that, or live in LA to be able to see it at a smaller theater and has to wait till it goes
Right.
wide? But then you're throwing all these nominations for it. But it's like, I don't know. I'm someone who feels like you should at least have the movie go wide before the end of the year and give people a chance to see it for it to be eligible for something like that. And then another one was like the new Wallace and Gromit movie that didn't even release anywhere until I think it was like January 2nd on Netflix because it's a Netflix original movie. But because of
Hmm.
that, it was eligible for Best Animated Feature for 2024. And it's like, movie didn't even release until 2025. So, I mean, those are my two
Yes.
tangents about the Oscars for this
Get
year's
mad,
Denise
Austin. This
Denise
is I
snub
like this
and the
side.
scheduling. Those are my nitpicks.
I like this side of Austin. I like it when he's got a little fire in his belly. This is what I'm talking about. So now, a new segment. We will have this segment at every regularly scheduled podcast. Maybe not on the specials, but on the
Mm-hmm.
regularly scheduled podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Segment number 3 for the day is Rate a Completed Show. So this is my favorite thing I've thought of since we started doing this podcast. So the rules are simple. Pick a show you have completed recently. Doesn't matter if it was in the past year or not, but pick a show that you have recently completed. Give its strengths and weaknesses, and give it a rating, percentage point and letter grade rating. And then finally, tell us whether or not you would recommend this movie or show for anyone else. Can be any of those things. Can be a movie, can be a show. I'll even say it could be a song. Before
Okay.
the year is out, there will probably be a song or two. So why don't you kick us off? Tell us what you've got underneath the
Yeah,
underneath
I'm excited
Chris.
about this one. So I'm going to give an honorable mention just because I couldn't decide between the two, so I want to at least mention this one. Is I think I've talked about it, but I don't remember if I've talked about it on the podcast since the series finished. Was the new Skeleton Crew TV show that Disney Plus
Mm,
did? I
yep.
really like that. I thought it was a really nice surprise of something that people weren't really expecting to be good, and it ended up being really good. I would have to sit with it a little bit to really kind of review it a little bit more, but in the end I ended up giving it probably a 7 or an 8, maybe leaning in the 8 out of 10 as far as the score
Okay.
goes for the show. Maybe it's just because of how surprising it was and how much I did enjoy it that I'm just kind of
Okay.
leaning on that more
So
positive
so
side
we'll
of
say
things, but
70 to 80%,
yeah, like a
somewhere between.
75%. Yeah,
Okay.
75% out
So
of 100.
so
Yeah. So
we'll
yeah,
say that's a C, a strong C
yeah,
average.
strong C. Yeah, so I
Okay.
really like that.
All right.
Strong C, close to a B. So that was my quick honorable mention. I did want to mention it because I know I've talked about the show at least once on the podcast before, and I think it's a really good, especially like family friendly Star Wars TV show. So if you got kids, it's a good one for them too. But the main one I wanted to talk about is another TV show. I just finished this one a few days ago. and it's the new Spider-Man TV show that's on Disney Plus. I don't know if you've heard about this one. It didn't get a ton of marketing or
Hmm.
advertisements, but there's a new Spider-Man show out on Disney Plus. They just finished their season finale, and it's called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which love the title, kind of a classic Spider-Man title. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. They were some of my favorite movies growing up, and I've always enjoyed like the old 90s animated Spider-Man TV show, that kind of thing. So he's arguably one of, if not my favorite superheroes. So I was excited just to see a new Spider-Man TV show in general. And this one
So
was cool because they, well, here, go ahead and ask.
let's say, so not to derail your thing here, but
Mm-hmm.
the you know what my problem is with the '90s animated Spider-Man?
That it stopped?
That, well, yeah, that too, but also that his lips never moved behind his mask
Yeah.
when
Well,
he talked.
you got to save money where you can.
I guess. I mean, just a couple little lines to let us
Yeah.
know it's
I
going,
mean,
right?
they don't always do that in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans either.
That's fair. You know what? You got
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. It's not just
You
that
got me,
TV show.
sir.
I don't see his mouth move in most of the masks he's under.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
You
shut
straightened
that
me out on that
argument
one.
right
Thank you.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You shot it down. Good
Yeah.
job.
But yeah, so I was excited about this show. I think from what I heard initially, it was supposed to be kind of an origin of where the MCU Spider-Man came from, but then they kind of rewrote it and started from scratch and ended up becoming more of a just a different universe of this whole, multiverse saga that we're kind of in the MCU. So it has a lot of, I guess, in the sense of the Spider-Verse movies, kind of canon event type things. A lot of events that happened in the MCU also happen in this universe, like the falling out with Captain America and the Avengers, the whole kind of Civil War drama. A lot of that happened in this universe as well. Several characters from the MCU will show up from time to time or at least be referenced. But in the end, it kind of does its own thing, which for me is kind of a strength and weakness of the show. I like that they kind of weren't tied down to the MCU and they got to do their own thing. But at the same time, the things that they did tie in with the MCU was like, well, if we're going to tie this many things in, but have it not be the MCU, why did we even bother doing that kind of a thing? So, like, that worked and didn't work for me in some senses. But as far as the things I liked the most about the show, I liked a lot of the different characters that show up. You get a lot of the different rogues gallery of Spider-Man that shows up. You got the Scorpion. That's kind of the main big villain for this season, which I thought was cool because we haven't really gotten a Scorpion focused kind of Spider-Man story in a while. So you got Scorpion, you got Doctor Octopus Origins kind of showing up. You got some Venom showing up. Doctor Strange, he's not a villain, but Doctor Strange shows up for a little while. So a lot of different characters like that. They have a lot of cool stuff with the Tombstone character. I've always thought Tombstone was, more of a lesser villain in the Rogues Gallery of Spider-Man, but they do a kind of unique and interesting twist on the character in this one, which is pretty cool. For me, I think my favorite aspect of it was the animation. I thought that was really cool. So they kind of stylized it to look like the old 60s comics of Spider-Man, which
Sure,
I was
sure.
never much of a comic reader for Spider-Man, but I thought that was a cool direction to go as far as the animation style. But the show takes place in a modern setting. So it's kind of like a marriage of the two. And let's, pay homage to the old look of Spider-Man, but let's tell it through like a modern lens when it comes to the animation itself. So I thought that was a really cool way of doing it. So it felt like a good marriage of the two. So
Sure.
in the end, there's some things I didn't like about it. There's some things I liked a lot about it. I definitely want to see the show continue. I hope they renew it for a season 2. I think they could take it in some really cool directions. So in the end, I liked it. I didn't love it. I think there's room for improvement, which is a good thing coming off of season 1. But I also think they have a solid first season under the belt. So I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're gonna say a
yeah,
70% then.
yeah. And I would recommend
Okay.
it. I think it's good, especially if you're a fan of Spider-Man. I think it's good and definitely worth
Okay.
checking out.
Very nice. I like the concept of relating it to the comic books, especially in the, like you said, in like the 60s and 70s animations of the comic
Hmm.
books, because my favorite character derived from what made his first appearance in Spider-Man, which is kind of cool. So if you're a comic guy, which I hope you are, if you're listening to this show, The Amazing Spider-Man 129 was the first appearance of Frank Castle, the
Okay.
Punisher.
Yep.
So, and he is my favorite Marvel character of all time.
Hmm.
I really
Which
like the idea that because they sort of left this door open, perhaps we can see characters like the Punisher make an appearance.
Yeah. Yeah, which
and it
reminds
would
me,
fool a
Daredevil
guy.
does show up in the show. He shows up in one episode, and it was really cool. They got Charlie Cox to voice him, so that was really cool. Because like he comes
Nice,
on screen, and I'm like, that sounds like Charlie Cox, and then I looked it up afterwards, and it was. So yeah, they do
very
have
cool.
Daredevil show up, which definitely means they could eventually have the Punisher show up as well, which would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah. If Daredevil showed up, then maybe Elektra shows up.
Yeah,
And I gotta say, comic book crushes. Uh, hot, hot take here. Hot take. I thought that Jennifer Garner as Elektra was okay. A lot of
you
people
heard
have
it
some
here
hate for
first.
Jennifer Garner.
She's okay.
Heard it here first. I thought she was. I thought she was everything. And keep in mind that I did see this as a teenager, but so maybe it was the hormones talking. But I thought she was. I thought she was it was a pretty well cast. I don't. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe they could have done a little better,
Yeah,
but
it was enough that they recasted her for Deadpool and Wolverine, right?
well, and they recast her for the
Yeah,
Elektra show as well,
yeah, hmm,
or movie as well.
yeah.
Um, I, I mean, I dig Jennifer Garner. She's a good girl type, actress that you see in a lot of family friendly type stuff and
Yeah, some
kind of
comedies, some
family
family
oriented
comedies,
type,
and rom
yeah,
coms. Yeah.
romantic
Hmm.
comedies. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So heard it here first. Hot take of 2025 thus far, maybe.
Yeah.
Jennifer Garner as Elektra was okay.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a good take, and I like how strict you are as a grader.
I try
I
to
feel
be.
like my tendency is to want to just be like, oh, this is great, I give it a 90, or this is
Hmm.
great, I give it
I try to,
a
yeah.
70.
For me, the projects that are most interesting and the reviews that are the most interesting are the ones you have mixed feelings on. I always feel bad when I just love something, but I'm not going to give it like a 10 out of 10. I'm going to sit in that like 9 out of 10. And it's like, what causes it to not quite be perfect for you, and trying to like quantify that in words. Where if I'm feeling mixed but generally positive on something, those are usually my favorite things to review, just because yeah, there's a lot I liked and there's some things I didn't like, but I feel like those are the most
Yeah,
fun
point
reviews to write.
counterpoint, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So unless you're Gladiator, in which case you are solid 10 out of 10.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a few of those.
So all right, so yeah, so let's roll into mine,
Yeah, I want to hear
and
yours.
I've got one that's kind of off the cuff. I have this weird infatuation with Peyton List as an actress. I don't find her like she's not a celebrity crush. I don't find her like appealing visually in any way, shape, or form. But for some reason, I tend to like the characters that she plays in everything I've seen her in, specifically the Karate Kid spinoff, Cobra Kai. And so I picked School Spirits,
Okay.
which is now into its second season on Paramount Plus.
Hmm.
But season one is Peyton List as she stars as this character Maddie with her best friend Spencer and her boyfriend. I can't think of what his name is. Oh, Christian Ventura,
Okay.
and they're really well cast together. They have this kind of weird relationship where the boyfriend isn't really in with the clique of her friends, and she has only two close friends, and she is from a conflicted background, and she goes missing, and there's some supernatural involved. It's I'm trying to not spoil it too much,
Hmm.
but School Spirits, very very good wordplay for the actual theme of the show. So
Yeah.
basically she finds herself in a crossover between the living and the dead, and she's trying to figure her way out of it, but she is kind of handcuffed to the school that she you know died in, so she can't escape. And as you watch, you figure out what happened to her and how she got in the position that she got into. It's interesting. It's not lewd, and it's about as young adult friendly as a show about the supernatural probably could be. I really enjoyed it. I thought I'm not its target audience for sure,
Right.
but thought that the show itself was really good. Enjoyed Peyton List. Sorry, Spencer McPherson. Sorry, was the boyfriend. Plays the boyfriend. Christian Ventura plays the best friend Simon. But I thought the cast was really good. I thought the show was really good. The premise is good. Felt fairly original, but of course is an adaptation of a book, so you know can't seem to get much of that for originality
Yeah, it happens.
for the time being.
Yep.
But it definitely was a refreshing a different kind of show for me to watch. It's not. It touches on some sensitive issues and topics, especially among teenagers, and I thought it did so tastefully. So if I were to grade it, I would say I'm going to say 77
Okay.
for my grade. 77% strong C. And I'm a little bit looser of a grader than you are, of course, but did enjoy it very much. Would recommend it, especially to a younger audience. I think it would be a good
Okay.
show for that high school age kid, college age kid. You know, it's like a lot of the other teen films. It's kind of geared at a certain audience,
Yep.
and it just happened to click for me because, like I said, I'm a fan of Peyton List. I think she's an intriguing actress, and I think she could probably expand her horizons a little bit for whatever her next project might be. But they did renew it for season two. I'm halfway through season two, and it stays good.
Okay.
So it is getting a little tired. I would suspect that they'll probably have to wrap the story up at the end of season two, but maybe not. But yeah, would recommend definitely. Definitely one of those rainy day, cold day kind of cuddle up and binge it. 12 episodes, first season. You know, it's enjoyable. Something that I think most people would like, especially if you have a touch of taste for the supernatural type stuff. So
Yeah.
definitely on my list to finish. Still intertwined, and I'm basically watching each new episode as it comes out now
Yep.
because
Yeah.
only season two's sixth episode is out, I believe. So
Okay.
yeah, pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting for sure. And if in the spirit of honorable mentions, I would throw in 1883. I watched it as well.
I love that one. It was very good.
It was strongly written, cinematically pleasing, just like everything else
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Sheridan does.
Yeah.
It's another one of those solid 80%, 8 out of 10 type shows. It's
Yep.
not setting the world on fire for its acting. It's not setting the world on fire for for its storyline. It's just a good, solid show
Yeah.
that a lot of people would enjoy. I think more for the
It's
cinematics, the horses and
yeah.
the Indians, and
It's
you know,
much more depressing than some of the other Yellowstone stuff that's out there, just because of the nature of going west and all the difficulties and challenges that brings. But I think that's part of what kind of gives it a cool kind of American spirit
yeah, it's
and the sense of it too, of just that
well, and
whole.
it's exactly what the show does best.
Mm-hmm.
As far as that goes, that's probably a 95%
Yeah,
as far as the
it's the
storytelling
authenticity for that.
and
Yeah.
the authenticity is very high. Really enjoyed that a lot. Gave it a higher grade than School Spirits just because I think the audience range is broader. Um, and yeah, I'm a wee bit of a Taylor Sheridan fanboy at this point, I guess. He's kind of like that. What is it, Studio 87 or whatever? Just kind of hasn't done anything that I'm like, oh, that was terrible. Like
7 North
I always
for the stunt guys.
or
Yeah.
87 North. That's what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
I know what I'm getting into, right? Like
Yep.
every time you see it pop up, you're like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be good.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I love how
yeah,
we still
that's
don't have a consistent rating system. We're like, yeah, I'm still out of tens. Your percentages. Sometimes we
well,
throw
I'm
letter
trying real
grades
hard to
in
get
there.
you to convert because
I've been
you're
an
a
out of ten
stars or
guy for
dots
so
guy or
long. I know. Yeah.
yeah. We I like the percentage grade just
I
because
do.
it makes
It
it
opens up
easier.
a little bit more of flexibility of specific,
Yeah.
because I'm always an out of 10 guy, but at the same time, I don't like when people are like, oh, this is a 8.83, and I'm like, can you really get like
Yeah.
into the hundredths decimals there? Like, do we
No,
really need
we're
to do
not. We're
that?
not getting into the tenths or the hundredths. We're
Yeah.
staying at full
Uh-huh.
percentage points. But
Yeah.
that was my logic behind the grade system was
Uh-huh.
that if you had two shows that ranked 80%, that extra percent could go to say, hey, I definitely like this, just a little
Yeah.
more than the other,
Sure. Yeah.
for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's our take on the first segment of Rated Completed Show.
I like it. It's a fun segment.
We need to come up with something better to call it, maybe, but.
Mm-hmm.
You know what, man? It's been too long. I'm glad that we kept this one kind of short.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since we've got together to do this.
I
Every
know.
technical difficulty I could possibly have, I've had today.
And we still did it.
Yes, we still did it. It was a 45-ish minute podcast that took 2 hours to produce because of my technical difficulties. But yeah, so certainly appreciate you hanging in and weathering the storm for that one.
Thanks for being patient with us, everybody. We appreciate it.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Even though you didn't have to suffer, you people listening through all the nightmare that was, while I fought my computer and Austin patiently waited. Um, so we've done our best for the day for sure. So
Yes.
like I said, be sure to check back because we've got some cool new things coming up. Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
make sure you're following
season
us because
two in a
we'll
nutshell.
post that stuff. Yeah, we got season 2 kicking off with this one. We're going to be doing probably next, like you said, we'll do our anticipated movies and shows since we'll pretty much be in March at that point. And then we still got our Star Wars special coming as well as several other episodes. And we know we got some new segments with our what's it rated completed show to be renamed at some point. But I'm excited. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, we'll call it Grade Me maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Rate
something.
me.
We're coming up
That's a
with a
common,
creative
like,
name for
people
that.
go on Twitter and they're like, rate me or something like that, and they'll.
Yeah. Because back in the day, that was a trend when I was younger. You
Mm-hmm.
would post a picture of yourself, and I think there was actually a website even that you could do that on.
They might have been, yeah.
Hot or Not, that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
called Hot or Not.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely, that was
Hot
it.
or
I
Not
forgot
movie
about that
TV
until
edition or
yeah,
something.
Hot or Not.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe that's the direction we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
We learned it here first.
Yeah.
We figured it out together.
Yeah.
That's how good we are.
Give us
The
your
audience
suggestions,
listens,
though.
and
We like hearing our
yeah,
audience's picks, right?
yeah. Throw it down in the bottom. Give us a comment on what you think the
Flame
segment
us
should
if
be
we have
called.
terrible ideas and you have better ones.
Yeah, no, don't flame us. I don't say mean things to my people that are watching my shows. Don't flame us. Be nice. Keep it PG at least, please.
Yes. Family friendly.
Keep it PG. This is 6 episodes strong, and I've used zero profanity so far. I'm proud of myself for this,
Even
in
when we
spite
were
of the
off
fact,
air, you were still clean with your
yeah, which
grumbling about your technology.
well, there were some under the breath. I promise you, there were some under the breath
None that the
profanities,
mic picked up
but
for
we
me.
figured it out. Good enough. I'm glad. I'm glad the mic was off. You probably would have heard a couple. So yeah, we've got the thing rolling again. So you'll notice if you're watching this on YouTube, we have a new intro and outro. Put some work in on getting the whole thing cleaned up a little bit and making it look a little more viable as a podcast, something that people are going to want to watch, a little more visibly pleasing or
Dave put some
visually
good work
pleasing,
into
I
that
guess.
intro.
Yeah, so we're going to put that up with this first episode, so you'll have watched it by the time you hear me telling you about it, which is cool. Looks a little better, looks a little cleaner. Definitely really enjoyed this ride so far. Glad you're with us. Be sure to check us out, subscribe, review, follow us on social media. Tell your friends about us, please. We're not looking for dates, we're just looking for listens. That's all, I promise. So with that, I'm going to say stay classy.
We'll be back.